Good morning, this is Dr. Cindy Woody, and today is September 25th, 2020 as I make this video. I promised my candidates that I would bring you an update after our webinar with our PASL people. So here I am, a couple of very important notes. So number one, the ETS staff confirmed that each one of your tasks on the PASL exam is graded by a different grader. Therefore, the grader has no idea whether your PASL task 1, 2, and 3 are connected or not. So in my previous guidance, I've always recommended connecting your task so that you choose a problem in task 1, you work on the professional development for that problem in task 2, and then you have the professional learning community associated with directing and solving that problem in task 3. So I still think that's a best practice for you. I think it makes sense to have a big picture idea and it works with your practicum plan that you're developing in 5389. But it also helps those of you who are graduates. I usually put these videos out on YouTube for our people who are graduated. And I also have heard from people from other institutions who've graduated from a different educator preparation provider that haven't had any resources. And so they look at our YouTube videos to try to understand what they're supposed to be doing. So if you're relying on experiences in the field that are not connected for your task, you'll be okay. That'll really help a graduate. Now, number two, another question that we got clarified, some of you have to change practicum sites in the middle of your program, and that's understandable. You get a new opportunity, your family moves to a new town, you take a new job, that happens, that's real life. And so the ETS staff said it is perfectly fine for you to complete one task at one practicum site and a different task at a different practicum site, and that your data and your demographic explanation for your task may not be the same. So it's okay. It allows you that way, if you've changed sites or if maybe you completed a task while you were in the program and then you graduated and completed another task afterwards, those tasks do not have to be connected to each other so that you can use the different information that you've gathered. So let's say, for example, in task 2 where you're doing professional development, maybe you had some good data about the professional development you were going to use at that school, and you put together the practicum plan with your, or not practicum plan, the professional development plan with your teacher committee and with input from your site supervisor and your leadership team, and you actually maybe carried out some of the professional development and have some work samples to show how it affected student learning. You can still use that even though now you don't work at that school anymore. And they said that it's important for the task to be coherent, but that it could be a task that you had completed in the past. It didn't have to be exactly in the same time frame that you were completing your PASL. So I thought that was helpful information. Now, we spent some time in the webinar this week talking about those of you who are trying to work around remote learning barriers. So they provided us with some examples, and you can see some of those in the library of examples for PASL under task 3 for the videos. But they explained that now that you're working remotely, a student work sample may look like your camera taking a picture of the computer screen where the student is working. Maybe they're working on an online learning platform and you take a picture of the work sample of the student on the computer. They said that you could take JPEGs, you could take a photo and save it as a JPEG or PNG and then paste it on a Word document and use that for one of your artifacts. So it's fine. I've been asked this question before, can we use multiple photos on a single Word document and that counts as one artifact? And that is fine, you can do that. They also said that let's say that you're doing task 3 and your committee has to meet maybe on Zoom or Google Hangout. They said that was fine, and there were a lot of different ways that you could submit evidence of that. You could do the recording from the actual platform, or as long as you have permissions. You could do the recording with your phone looking at the platform if you could get that to work. So let's say maybe you can't record your Zoom call, but you have permission from everybody in it, and you record it with your cell phone looking at the Zoom call. That could work. They talked about if you're having to social distance, but you're able to have a face-to-face meeting, that you can set your camera up, your cell phone or whatever, at a far angle and be able to see the people in the video even though you're sitting far apart and maybe even wearing masks. They said that it's okay for a person to call into a video conversation and not be able to see their face as long as we could hear their voice and we had their permission slip. So that happens sometimes, that your technology doesn't always connect. They also made an important recommendation. I would say this would be number 3 if I was going to say I picked up 3 big tips. I get this question sometimes. Is it okay to tell the people ahead of time what I'm trying to accomplish in my video, and can we kind of practice? And yes, the answer is yes, absolutely, you can do that. So if you're making your 10-minute video and you're interviewing the person that is selected for that conversation, you can absolutely practice these things. They said be sure and work with your participants ahead of time to know how to mute and unmute. If they need to turn the camera on and off for connectivity issues, they know how to do that. That they understand the questions that you're going to be asking and the kinds of evidence that you're trying to collect, so that you have an accurate representation of what happened, but also that no time is wasted in the video while people are trying to make their technology work or trying to understand where we're going with this question. Okay, I'm put up on the screen the guidance for completing the PASL assessment in a virtual environment or a hybrid model. And this link I will send out with the video. This link is new this fall from PASL, so if you're seeing this on YouTube, you may not be aware that this came out the beginning of September 2020. If you're seeing this video after the fall of 2020, you may want to check back and make sure this information is still accurate. I'll try to go back later and take down videos that no longer apply as the directions change. But for now, they talked about the fact that you can use a hybrid model. You just have to make sure that you're really fulfilling the task in a virtual learning environment that is the same. The directions and the rubric are still the same for PASL. That part doesn't change. But what they've done is they've made some exceptions for you, because they understand that even your problems aren't the same anymore in a virtual learning environment that they might have been in a face-to-face environment. So let's look at the examples they give here. On task 1, they said candidates are required to collect longitudinal data to support their identified problem or challenge that is connected to the school or the school community. It can be any situation that needs prompt attention and will positively influence instructional practice and student learning. So remember, we've talked about this in previous videos. If your problem doesn't have anything to do with student learning, then you really should not use that problem. It's not going to be effective when your scores come back. You're going to see that you didn't satisfy what was on the rubric by selecting a problem that impacts student learning and working on that solution. But they did make some clarifications about some types of problems that we're seeing right now during this period of remote and hybrid learning models. For example, insufficient technology implementation by teachers, adapting instruction for a virtual learning environment or hybrid model. Maybe your staff doesn't know how to do that. That's the problem you're going to work on. Or maybe your campus doesn't have good technology implementation. That's the problem that you've chosen for your focus. Ensuring that students have the resources that they need to learn in a virtual learning environment. So you might even go as specifically as maybe the special education students, and how are we supporting them and making sure that their modifications or accommodations are in place for them. Ensuring that students have I read that one. Supporting the families of students who must be instructed at home. So there's an opportunity for you there to solve this problem. I can see some professional development opportunities in all 4 of these examples. And then also the opportunity for you to lead this professional learning community that's going to continue to work on this problem along the way. We've also had some people who have been using testing data in their problem as they've been collecting their PASL task and artifacts, working on the PASL task and collecting their evidence for the artifacts. And now, we've pulled back from this state data. The STAR test and the EOCs were not administered last year. And so they're kind of at a loss of what to do without that data. So it says, for candidates who want to use testing data in their commentary, they can explain that due to the COVID-19 disruption, they drew from the previous year's state and district data and discuss how they use that data to support their choice of the problem. So you don't have to say, like, let's say for the one, maybe ensuring that students have the resources they need to learn in a virtual learning environment. You can use the data from 2018, 2019 school year and say that we identified this as a problem even then, and now that we have this new added challenge of being remote in our educational services, we have to work on this problem and take some new approaches to it. So all of that should be helpful for you to be able to bring your problem together. For task 2, you're asked to create a school level professional development, and not just that one thing. That's the thing sometimes is I'll have a candidate that says, yay, I got an opportunity to lead professional development at my campus. That's task 2. Well, that's part of task 2. Remember, it's a complex process. So it says in step 1, you select your group of colleagues and ask them to identify a list of professional learning needs. So again, back with that problem, this can help you, if you tie your tasks together, having this group that helps identify a list of professional learning needs can tie to the problem that you've already identified in task 1, and you already have substantial data that that is a problem. So now you're trying to find out how the professional learning needs tie to that. So if we say that maybe teachers are not comfortable implementing instructional strategies in an online platform, then what would be the professional development needs around that problem? So you've kind of narrowed down the focus to make this task a little bit easier for you. It says, while these needs must be aligned, so I'm right here. While these needs must be aligned with the building, district, or state goals, so the building goals, remember your campus improvement plans, we're always like for you to go back and look at. It can be aligned with your district goals or your district improvement plan, and or it can be aligned with state goals. So if you'll look on the TEA website, the commissioner has some goals that are the goals for the whole state of Texas for our public school systems. So it can be any of those goals that you align your professional development with. But it says you can focus on the various kinds of support needed to adapt instruction for the virtual learning environment or the hybrid model. So that's okay. That's a real problem right now that we really need you to be solving as a practicum candidate, as a certification seeking student. It says many of these strategies that school leaders use during in-person settings or situations can also be used in virtual learning. But those professional learning objectives for colleagues might need to be adjusted, and the activities might require some modifications. So, excuse me, it gives some examples here. It says that the candidate still has to demonstrate your ability to facilitate the professional development to address their building level needs. So even though maybe you're working on a district problem, this is still a campus level certification. So you still need to show that your support is aimed at supporting your campus and your teachers at your campus and instruction for the students at your campus. Candidates also will need to explain what kind of strategy. Oh, it says that you can use an online platform, or you can conduct the meetings via a conference call. You'll need evidence of the conference call, remember. That would you would need to provide a rationale if you use this approach. Candidates also will need to explain what kind of strategies they use to engage the participants if you're using a virtual environment. So for example, if you're going to use asynchronous materials, you're going to pass them out in advance. Then you're going to meet with your colleagues online. You may want to have some small group like breakout sessions, in Zoom and some of the other platforms. You can have those little small group breakout sessions. You can explain that. You may want to record some of the small groups. You can do maybe the large group and then the small group, or the small group and then the large group. And you have to have those permission forms, so don't forget about that. And then in step 3, you have to demonstrate your ability to analyze the effectiveness of colleagues. So in your virtual learning environments, candidates can ask their colleagues to either join the lesson or video record it, in order to identify evidence of how the professional development influenced their instructional practice. So colleagues can cite evidence from the video and take screenshots. If a scanner is unavailable, you can take photos of the student work. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. And then in step 4, you have to demonstrate your ability to reflect on the effectiveness of the implementation of the building level professional development. So candidates are required to analyze all aspects, the planning, the designing, the implementing of professional development, and what the modifications would be if you made it in a virtual learning environment. So basically, you've got the commentary section, and in the commentary section, if you break from having the face-to-face meeting, then it's up to you to explain how you facilitated a virtual meeting, why it was necessary, and what extra steps you took to make sure that people's voices were heard and that they actually collaborated with each other, and not just a sit and get where you're speaking and people are watching a recorded video or something like that. And then the last task, task 3, is creating the collaborative culture. So in this task, you're going to demonstrate your ability to facilitate stakeholders' efforts. That's really the whole gist of it, is as a leader, are you going to be able to bring people together to have a conversation about solving problems? And can you keep that conversation alive, and can you organize the structure of this group so that as a leader, you come out with the task accomplished at the end, which is a collaborative effort to own and solve the problem together. So again, I really believe that it's better for you if you choose the problem in task 1 and you work on the problem with your colleagues in task 3. It doesn't have to be, because as we said earlier, the graders are not ever going to know what you did in task 1 if they're grading task 3. But I still think it helps you to keep the whole management of the task moving forward as you break it down in your practice. So in step 1, you may want to collaborate with colleagues who feel more comfortable communicating and instructing in a virtual learning environment. So if you have somebody on your team, well, not maybe on your team, but on your campus, who hates virtual learning and can never remember how to log in or turn their mic on and off and those kinds of things, let's not include that person. I mean, that one would not be an ideal colleague for you. In step 2, it says candidates must demonstrate their ability to facilitate colleagues' work during the course of developing a plan to improve instruction, student learning, and school culture. So it says if you're going to use the virtual learning environment, you need to explain the strategies that you use to involve the team. You would still do that even if face-to-face meetings were scheduled. But if you can't do the face-to-face meeting, then you need to explain how you're going to actually interact with these people and keep the conversation alive. Another option is for candidates to conduct meetings via conference calls. Oh, remember right here, I skipped the important part. If face-to-face meetings cannot be scheduled, candidates may use an online platform, record these interactions in a 5-minute video. They reminded us that these videos that you send in cannot be edited. The only editing that's going to occur is you're going to select 5 minutes from a meeting and 10 minutes from the other conversation, and you're going to edit those 2 pieces to make one 15-minute video. But you do not have permission to start and stop the video or to cut pieces out in the middle of the video, because it should be 5 continuous minutes of this face-to-face meeting or this interactive meeting online, and then we'll talk again in a minute about the 10 minutes. I'm sorry, ragweed is not my friend. Another option for candidates, conference calls, we talked about that, and again the permission forms. For step 3, candidates must demonstrate their ability to facilitate the collaborative team's work as they implement the plan to improve instruction, student learning, and school culture. By recording a 5-minute video on an online platform, candidates can cite examples to address the guiding prompts. For the required artifact that reflects student learning, candidates can take photos and screenshots of student work. So in every part of the way, along the way, you have to use the student work to show that instruction has been affected and improved as a result of your efforts. Okay, step 4, candidates must demonstrate their ability to facilitate colleagues' self-reflection. So here comes your 10-minute video. They need to have a self-reflection on a collaborative team and their ability to reflect on future work in building collaborative teams in order to promote positive change in the school culture. For this step, candidates must record a 10-minute video of a conversation they facilitated with at least one colleague from the team. Okay, so let's go back to how many people need to be involved in your videos. So the ETS people clarified that for video number 1, the 5-minute video, you need at least 3 people in the video. So find 3 willing colleagues who will be on your team, who are willing to be videotaped, and who can articulate the answers to the things you need them to talk about to work through in your 5-minute video. And then for video number 2, you pick one of those people, or you can pick a different person who's on your bigger team, but you need one person that is a trusted colleague who is willing to do a 10-minute reflection with you to talk about how you facilitated their self-reflection. So this is about, it's sort of, I say like a promo of you. It's your friend giving you a shout out and having a conversation with you about what they learned and how they grew through the process that you did in task 3, which was creating that collaborative culture. So it says if the candidates are unable to record a face-to-face meeting, that's where we were talking about you could sit far apart if you need to, then they will need to consider using a video communication platform. Another option is to follow the COVID-19 guidelines to prevent infection by setting the camera up at an angle to capture the conversation with yourself and at least one colleague. Candidates may find other resourceful ways, including the voices of colleagues who do not have access to a video camera, by inviting them to call into the meeting. So you literally could have somebody on the telephone on the table in a call-in. You could have somebody sitting at the table with you who's face-to-face, and you could be maybe even in the face-to-face meeting, or you could be on maybe another Zoom call. There's lots of ways to do this if you get creative. But don't let the virtual learning environment be your excuse for not finishing your PASL. Get it done. And then they gave some basic information about video communication or using video communication platforms and what you need and how you could record things. So this is the information about files and uploading, preparing for the recording. Here's what we talked about: practice instructing and recording using the video's platform features. If possible, use headphones and earbuds. Familiarize yourself with colleagues. Familiarize your colleagues with the platform's features by trying them out. Thumbs up, hand raising for questions. And then recording the lesson. Keep the windows and programs open. Shut everything else down. Recording a tile. When candidates need to show something to the team or demonstrate or model for them, it's appropriate to share the screen or switch the view. When they're done, they should be immediately returned to a gallery view. So the raters really want to see people's faces and interactions. They really don't want to see one person. They especially don't want to just see the candidate and hear voices. So if you can come up with a way where at all possible we could see your face and 3 other people's faces, then that helps satisfy the 5-minute video. And then your face and one other person's face, or at least the colleague's face, for the 10-minute video, and maybe more than one colleague for the 10-minute video, then you're done with that part. So one last tip for you: read the rubric. They talked about that at length yesterday. They said when a student is unsuccessful, it is typically because they just sort of generalized the task and submitted things, but they did not read the rubric, and it says specifically exactly what you need to submit. It also said pay attention to whether the word has an S or not. So if it says provide an example or provide examples. So when you're writing your commentary, if it says provide examples, that means more than one. If it says provide an example, that means one. Okay, so if it says submit an artifact that shows, or submit artifacts that show. Okay, so know the difference. And also, don't submit an artifact that is not discussed in your commentary, and don't discuss artifacts in your commentary that you're not planning to submit. So you need to have the evidence and then discuss the evidence in your written commentary. It should be a nice match. So the rater should be able to see an example of what you're talking about while you describe it in your commentary. Okay, I believe that is all for our update today. I apologize. That's 23 minutes. That's about 10 more minutes than I meant to spend on this, but I feel like those of you that are trying to prepare for PASL right now need this information. I know you're going to be successful. So far we have outstanding PASL rates, but it depends entirely on you wading through all of that information in the PASL website or on the PASL website, one little bite at a time. And the ETS people said they believe they have provided deep dives that can help you be successful for every single little piece of the things that they ask for on the PASL task. So I think their best approach is just to get you an account and you write to us for approval, get the account set up so that you can start building your artifacts and decide if you want to submit this fall or in the spring. And then just start building the artifacts and the written commentaries. If you don't have what you need, then postpone it and do it in the spring. If you have what you got, then just do it. Your results will be back around Thanksgiving. You'll have a small window to pay to resubmit and fix tasks that don't come back passing. So you'll want to take advantage of that if at all possible. But I believe you've got this. Go forth and prosper. Maybe that's what I should say. Best wishes to all of you. Thanks. Bye.